in the following two-part tutorial series. We're gonna cover how to use the Modular Pipes project meshes and the corridor project meshes to construct a very small scene. The first scene is going to be just a corner of a small interior. We're now going to close off the space from the outside, and we're going to primarily focus on using the modular pipes together to construct different networks and pipe configurations within a confined space. I am going to be using the assets created in Unreal Engine 4 Modular Pipes project tutorial series, as well as Unreal Engine 4 the corridor project tutorial series. To learn how to create modular pipes, go download Unreal Engine 4 Modular Pipes project tutorial series. You will learn how to model, UV, bake normal maps, texture, light map, create collisions, and then use these pipes inside UE4. These are highly reusable and very versatile pipes that could be used in a variety of environments. But most important is you will have the knowledge for how to create these modular pipes. And if you're going to be creating game environments, you're going to need to know how to create modular pipes. So I'm going to leave a link in the description box and in the blog post for you to check out. Here I have a project open that doesn't contain modular pipes or the corridor assets. And I need to copy over these assets into this project so I can begin to use them. And this is something you can do to any assets that are being used in one project, but you want to use them in the current project. Let's go to Launcher and find the current project you have open, the one that you are working in. In my case, this is WOLD Assets. Right click and choose Show in Folder. I'm going to keep this open right here. Then back in the Launcher, I'm going to do the same thing for the Modular Pipes project and for one of the available corridor projects. I have a few versions, so I'm going to choose 4.10 version. Alright, with these three open, I will need to navigate inside the content folder of the project. This is where all the assets for that project are kept. First, I'm going to do the modular pipes. Inside the content folder, select the WOLD modular pipes folder. Inside here, we have all the textures, materials, static meshes, and maps. And you have to make sure you select the main folder that's inside the content folder. Copy it, and then paste it inside the content folder of your current project. Then I'm going to do the same thing for the corridor assets. In this case, I don't have a dedicated folder for the corridor assets, so I'm going to need to select the 4 folders to copy over, which are example maps, textures, materials, and static meshes. Copy, and then paste them inside my current project in the content folder. Now let's go back into our UE4 project. You will see all the folders show up in the content browser. I'm going to quickly test by opening up any of the static meshes inside the static mesh editor. And then I'm going to open up a map to make sure that everything was loaded in properly. And then let's do the same thing for the corridor. I'm going to open up a map, let it load, and everything seems to be good. We copied over all the assets successfully. And the corridor project was created in 4.7, then converted to 4.10, and then we copied the assets over from 4.10 to the current version I'm using, which is 4.19, and everything is working great. So your old assets and your old maps can be easily transferred over to the new version of UE4. Now what I want to do is organize my content browser a bit. We have those 4 folders from the corridor project, and I want to put them inside its own folder, just like we have for the pipes. I'm going to create a new folder and name it WOLD corridor project. And I'm also going to open up a new window for the content browser so you can see better. Then I'm going to select the 4 folders, example maps, textures, materials, and static meshes. Then left click, hold, and drag them into the corridor project folder. Menu will pop up asking me if I want to copy or move, and I want to move. It's going to take a bit of time to move everything over, and when it's done, I will still have a couple of folders left over, materials and textures, that are empty, and I won't be able to delete them inside UE4 because it'll give me an error. So we'll deal with this in just a second, but right now I want to open up any of the example maps from the moved folder to make sure that everything loads in correctly. And it is. Now let's delete the 2 empty folders. I'm gonna shut down the project, then go back into the launcher, show in folder, go into the content folder, then select and delete the textures in the materials folder. And you have to do it from here, that way they will be deleted properly. Open your project back up, and now those 2 folders are gone. And we still have all of our assets inside the corridor project folder. Alright, now that we are done prepping and organizing, let's begin constructing. Here I have a basic scene setup, and it is a default scene when you go to File, New Level, and you choose Default. And I've expanded the ground plane by duplicating the floor static mesh. I inserted light mass importance volume, surrounded the entire area. I also have a mannequin inserted for scale, and I have a universal post-process volume that disables eye adaptation. And I have a tutorial that goes more into depth for creating this basic level scene setup. So I'm not going to go through every step here, but definitely check out that tutorial for more step-by-step of what to do. And again, I will link it in the description and in the blog post. I'm going to start by going into the corridor project and inserting a wall static mesh. I'm going to duplicate them a few times to establish the base of the structure. And then I'm going to insert a few modular pipes, a straight pipe, a smaller straight pipe, and a 90-degree pipe. I will also insert a column and position it at the top. Gonna tweak the scale along a single axis a bit so it covers the pipe at the top. I don't have an idea of what we're creating. I showed you the image before, and that was the finished state. My purpose was to do a small test scene so I can become familiar using the modular pipes and know what I have and what I'm dealing with. Anytime you get a new set of static meshes, it's good to spend a few hours constructing a small test scene so you can get comfortable using the static meshes. And when I did this, I didn't have any reference to go off of, and I really wanted to just freestyle and see what I can come up with just from my imagination. So I've also inserted a 3-way pipe and a valve, and just with a few meshes, I can already begin to put something together that's very interesting. You can achieve a lot of variation and a lot of variety with just a handful of modular pipes. And by varying the size, where they start, how they curve, and where they end, you can make a lot of different unique configurations. You may notice that the pipes are white, and they're actually a bit on a lighter gray. And this is their default texture, and it was done on purpose. I have a material instance set up, so I'm able to change the color of the pipes. The material node that is being used to create that color change is blend overlay. Multiply could also be used. And if the default pipe texture color was anything other than white or lighter gray, when I change the color through the material instance, the results are not going to be accurate, because whatever color you are choosing inside the material instance is being blended or multiplied against the default color of the pipes. So after some testing, I had to use a neutral lighter gray closer to white to make the results of color instance change more consistent and more accurate. And a little later, I'm going to change the colors of the medium pipes to orange, and you'll see what I mean. Alright, so I like how the medium pipes are beginning to look. I've also added a couple of medium pipe supports coming down from the ceiling. And I'm gonna duplicate the walls and the top column to create a corner of the set of this small open scene. And now I'm gonna start inserting small pipes. With these small pipes, I have to be a bit more precise to make sure they are all snapped together and are aligned. For medium pipes, I was using the grid spacing set to 10, but for small pipes I had to lower it to 5. You never want to work off the grid, especially for modular meshes. You want to ensure they're being snapped together without overlapping. And all of these pipes will be aligned to each other and will work together as long as you stay on the grid. And you only lower the grid to 1 when you're doing fine tuning and detail work. But most of the time I work on the grid set to 50, 10, or 5. And just like with the medium pipes, once I dragged a few of the small pipes into the scene, it becomes easy to duplicate, move them over, and create the pipe configuration you want. And with the small pipes, I'm trying to have a bit more intricate, more detailed pipe network than I did with the medium pipes. Since they occupy a smaller screen space, 1 or 2 small pipes isn't gonna look impressive. But when you include a lot more pipes composed together, a lot of turns, a lot more 3 and 4-way pipes, then it becomes more interesting. When you start creating different pipe networks by using all these different meshes, they're not always going to align from top to bottom. So for that, certain static meshes will have to be scaled along the z-axis, so that way they can be extended to fit within a confined space. Sometimes you'll have a specific height for the room, but a combination of meshes don't add up to that same height. So by changing the scale along the z-axis, you can increase the height or decrease the height for these static meshes to make sure they fit. And the value that you should change to increase or decrease the scale should be very small. You don't want to distort the static mesh too much to where it becomes noticeable. And I've done this quite a few times already with the small pipes and the top column where it needed to be aligned with the size of the wall. And as a small side note, changing the z-axis may be different for your static meshes. You may have to change it along Y or X. And this depends on the orientation, how your mesh was created inside the 3D modeling software. So the height might be along a different axis. So once I had one small pipe configuration created, I selected it all and duplicated it for the other side of the wall. One technique I like to use is to group a bunch of these pipes together once I've configured a network that I like. This way I can select them all at once, move them somewhere else, reposition, or duplicate it for another part of the environment. And the way you do that is just select all the static meshes you want to be grouped, and you can press Ctrl left click to add to a selection. And then once you have everything selected, press Ctrl G to group them. Then you can duplicate them, position them somewhere else. And if you need to ungroup them, press Shift G. These are all default shortcuts and they will work in any version of UE4. So what I often do is I create one pipe network that I like, then I duplicate it, move it somewhere else, ungroup it, and then reposition for a different configuration and create something new. This saves a lot of time when you can just duplicate and change a few things. And then again, I always group them at the end so I can tweak their placement a lot faster. And after I had sufficient amount of small pipes configured, I am duplicating medium pipes and moving them over to the side of the wall as well. I'm also including a medium pipe support on the bottom. I'm also going to jump into the map. This will give you a better sense of the space, how it feels, and how it looks. So now, once we have everything positioned, configured, and arranged, I want to simplify this a bit and make this more compositionally and visually pleasing. This small set, this space is way too cluttered, and I want to just go through one by one, create balance and better composition. I want to have a bit more negative space between the pipes. So at first, you would just go through and work with the static meshes, configure them together without any consideration for how they appear within the scene. And then you may want to do another pass after that, where you go through the scene again and work on composition and to balance everything out. So I'm repositioning some meshes, updating them, deleting them, or adding a few more, with the focus on balance and composition. And when you do this, you should zoom out a lot and take the whole scene in, so you can judge the entire picture. Now, if this is a static shot, then you will have a static locked camera through which you view and work on composition. But if it's a walkable, explorable environment, then you have to take the entire scene in all at once from different point of views while arranging your meshes and determining composition. One good book that I recommend that helped me is Pictorial Composition and Introduction by Henry Rankin Poore. Poore. Highly recommended. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with what I have here, and I want to begin to expand to include more static meshes and create a better sense of place. I'm going to replace this wall with a doorway and put a door frame and a door, and these static meshes are found inside the corridor project folder. Then I'm going to add an exit sign right up above, and this requires me to rearrange the pipe and the pipe valve behind it. So I need to fix that so the meshes are not overlapping. And then I want to include some AC vents. I'm gonna have one on the bottom, another one here, and then I'm gonna duplicate another one and position it at the top. Since we have some empty space, that negative space we created, it allows us to position some interesting meshes that add to the environment. Then maybe put a trash can right next to the door, but I end up deleting this later. Then let's insert a floor, and we're going to replace the default floor mesh with the meshes we have. I'm going to need to duplicate them a few times and position them to snap and align next to each other. So I like with what I have here, and now I want to change the color of the pipes to something other than white. I have a material instance created, and I'm going to apply it to all of these small pipes. Instead of doing it one by one, I'm going to select the entire group and then drag the material instance into the details panel material slot and replace to use just the material instance. And it will apply to all the grouped static meshes. And I also want to have another different color that I could use for the medium pipes. So I have another material instance that I will use. But just as a side note, I made a mistake here because I used the large pipes material and material instance to apply onto the medium pipes. And I didn't catch it at the moment, but I do end up fixing it in a bit. All of these small and medium pipes are sharing the same texture. This makes the modular pipes extremely optimized since it's only one texture and one material being used. So I decided on a darker gray for the small pipes, and now I want to apply this material instance to all of the small pipes in the scene. And then for the medium pipes, I have a color set right now, this teal color, but I end up replacing it to a deeper orange. And as I've mentioned earlier in the video, because the default base color of these pipes was white or a lighter gray, the color I'm choosing using the color picker is actually the color I'm seeing inside the scene. And this would not be the case if the default texture color was something else, some other color. So I like this deeper orange on the medium pipes, but I want to change the color on the small pipes. So I'm going to open back up the material instance and adjust the color to a lighter gray. And here is where I notice I am using incorrect material instance that is actually meant for large pipes and not small and medium pipes. So let's go ahead and fix that. I'm going to duplicate the medium small pipe material instance, rename it, and change its color. And then apply it to the medium valve. And I'm going to quickly change the large pipe material instance we currently have applied to all the medium pipes. I'm going to change it to something drastic. This way I can tell where we need to update our material instance. Then select all the medium pipes and apply the correct material instance. So now that looks pretty good. We have that detail, the bolts, has its own separate visual look that's not painted or has the orange color applied to it. And that's being done through a mask. And then I'm going to change the color on the small pipes to a lighter gray. And also update the color on the medium pipes. Let's go ahead and build our lights and take in the entire scene as a whole with baked lighting. Alright, that looks pretty good. I am going to delete the trash can. I don't like how it looks. But everything else is good. Now I'm going to do a pass to add some environment variation by inserting decals. I'm going to use some of the decals that I have created in how to create custom decals tutorial series. So I'm going to drag this decal dirt into the map, then rotate it and project it on the wall. Position it right here. And then scale its influence, its depth, how far it's being projected. And you want to get that distance as low as you can because it will help you optimize that decal usage. Then I'm going to duplicate the decal and position it next to it. You can get a lot of reusability from the decal by duplicating, readjusting its position, and then scaling its size so it appears a bit different than the one next to it. If you don't want a specific static mesh to receive decals, select that static mesh and then in the details panel, search for decal and then disable receive decal under rendering. And I'm just going to duplicate this decal a few more times along this wall. Adjust the others a bit. And also duplicate it for the other side of the wall. I want some more decal variation. And inside the corridor project, inside materials folder, if you search for decal, you'll find more decals to use. So I have some dirt that can be applied to a floor or a wall. I'm going to make sure to disable receive decals on the meshes I don't want to have this decal be projected on. And I'm going to duplicate it again, move it over to a different part of the floor, resize it, rotate it to vary its positioning, and then update to disable receive decals on most of the static pipe meshes. I'm going to insert a few more numbered decals. Position this one right here next to the door and scale its size significantly. And then insert another numbered decal and position it on the other side on this wall. I'm going to try to find a good spot for it. And I can't quite get the placement that I like. And the color red I think would need to be changed to match the pipes. But I'm going to try to update the medium pipe color instead and see if I can find something that matches the decal color. But I also don't want the pipes to be in the color red. So I'm actually going to delete the decal and we're going to do without it. Alright, so here we are. I think this looks pretty good. I'm happy with it. I'm going to jump inside the map, run around. And I think that's it. I'm going to clean up the scene a bit reposition the mannequins around to communicate scale, and then build lights on production. We didn't get any errors, so that's great. And now we have our scene with static baked lighting. And that's it. We took our modular static meshes, the pipes, and the corridor, used them together to construct a small open scene in order to get comfortable using the modular pipes and configuring different pipe networks, different pipe configurations. In the next video, I want to take these pipes and actually place them into a completed example scenes that we did in the corridor project. We're gonna place them into a daytime scene and the nighttime scene. And you can pick up both Unreal Engine 4 Modular Pipes project and Unreal Engine 4 the corridor project tutorials. Click on the links in the description or within the blog post, and I'll see you in the next video.